what's a couple of just hopeful hints that you could like kind of leave them with, number one? And number two, I'm just curious of your take on what you think, new business normal is going to look like on the backside of this.
Well, so I'll start with the end there. The new normal is the same as it was going to be, but 10 years ahead.
Yeah.
Because we're taking whatever
Certainly
trends you've
accelerated.
been following in your business and in the industries that you're focused on, whatever you were thinking about, 10 years from now, we're going to be here. Well, that's this year and it's now. And so what we're seeing with remote work, with everybody communicating on Zoom, is taking all these trends and just compress the timeline and making it happen right now.
Mm-hmm.
And so we can see where we're going to be, but right now is the time for you to be working on how are you going to change your business to match that. So I put a lot of time looking, even though I tend to specialize and at Boomtime we specialize in B2B. I look at the trends in B2C to see the expectations that are being set on the business side. Because we're now all getting accustomed to our groceries are being delivered, our meals are being delivered.
Right.
Whatever I want is showing up at my doorstep the moment I want it. Well, those expectations are going to translate into the business world. I'm no longer going to be waiting to make a trip in order to make a decision. I'm expecting to be able to find it out right now. I'm expecting to be delivered to me the moment that I want it, whatever that product or service is. So now's the time for you to be figuring out how are you going to change your business in order to be able to address exactly that. And how are you going to find new sales opportunities that are no longer dependent on meeting people face to face. And that trend that was already occurring, which is that our prospects are so much better educated than they ever were before.
Mm-hmm.
So are you part of that education process, or is your company so dominant that you can just be an order taker and when somebody's decided they want their service, you happen to be there for them? Well, that's great if you're the huge company in the market. My clients, my startups, they're the disruptors, they're the small businesses. So if you want to participate in that, you've got to be out there educating your prospects so that you're creating sales opportunities that wouldn't otherwise exist. And once again, this expertise-driven approach to marketing, it's the ideal way
Yep.
to do that.
Yep.
So it is tough to be in the middle of this crisis. It's really difficult to raise money right now. You know what? Most businesses shouldn't raise money from outside investors, because the same amount of effort you put into that, you can generate a lot more business than you can ever get in raising money. And so 1% of startups should actually raise professional investment because they have a realistic shot of creating a 20x return on that investment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Everybody else should figure out how to build a product and go sell it, because creating that revenue is going to be a much more valuable use of your time than talking to a bunch of investors who, by the way, the moment you accept money from them, you just committed to sell your company.
Mm.
Yet
Yep.
most entrepreneurs don't get that. Like,
Yep.
you take that check, you just said, I'm going to sell this company
Exactly.
on a timeline that somebody else is going to determine for me. That may not be a great idea for your business.
Yep.
So this is the perfect time to build a business that really meets the needs that clients have today. The best companies are born out of recessions.
Mm-hmm.
And some of that's because you have to be really strong and focused to survive in a recession. But then if you do that, you have less competition.
Right.
You have less noise to compete against. Like, every marketing campaign we're running right now is working better than it was 3 months ago. We're getting more response. I mean, we have the average number of visits to, and of course, these are businesses that have relevancy in the time period we're talking about,
Yep.
right? So it's
Yep.
not so great if you're running a restaurant.
Exactly. Yeah.
But if you've changed your messaging to be relevant to what people care about right now, we're looking at 50, 80%, 100% increase in visits to websites, much higher open rates, much higher engagement with interactions and posts on LinkedIn, higher acceptance rate to connection requests. Because we're all spending more time online, it's easier to get people's attention right now.
Is revenue proportional? I mean, so it's one thing to have people visit your site. It's one thing to have them click on links. It's one thing to have them look at it and consider. But is the revenue also increasing at 100% or 50% or whatever, or is it just more activity and I guess interest right now? I mean, is it directly proportional?
Well, absolutely, it's not. I mean, there are lucky cases where it is, right?
Hmm.
So, like the alcohol home delivery service, right? You know, that's taken off like crazy.
Yeah, exactly.
Most of us aren't lucky enough to be in that place, and that's why you get this disconnect of where people pull back from marketing during a recession like this,
Hmm.
because it doesn't directly translate today into the same level of revenue. What you're doing though is planting seeds that are going to turn into a lot more revenue down the road.
Yeah.
You have to be willing to make that investment today in your time and your effort of getting in front of that audience. But because it's easier to make those connections and build that audience today, the payoff is actually outsized now
Hmm.
compared to when times are great.
Right.
But yeah, you have to have the staying power to last long enough to take advantage of
Yeah.
that.